Stephen King fans are eating well in the year 2025. We had The Monkey, The Life of Chuck, and now The Long Walk, a dark dystopian tale of what happens to 50 18-year-olds who volunteer to walk as long as they have to in order to win a large sum of money amongst the poverty-stricken world. There's only one catch. If you stop, you die. And only one can live. Hey everybody, welcome to another Ending Explained. My name is John here on Burns Reviews, and today we are talking about the new film by Francis Lawrence, The Long Walk. Starring Cooper Hoffman, David Jonsson, Garrett Wareing, Tut Nyuot, Charlie Plummer, Judy Greer, and Mark Hamill as the General. But before we begin, if you could, be sure to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe so that the YouTube algorithm doesn't shoot this video in the face. Also, just a heads up, there's going to be a lot of spoilers for The Long Walk, so if you haven't seen The Long Walk, be sure to check out our spoiler-free out-of-theater reaction here on the channel. With that said, the film that will probably give you a new appreciation for always utilizing a bathroom break, The Long Walk. The Long Walk had its world premiere in Los Angeles on August 19th before being released nationwide on September 12th. Filming began on July of 2024 and wrapped in mid-September. But the road to The Long Walk was not an easy one. In 1988, George A. Romero was approached to direct the film adaptation, but it never happened. In 2007, Frank Darabont, director of The Green Mile, The Mist, Shawshank Redemption, and The Walking Dead, had secured the rights to the film adaptation of the novel and planned to make it low budget, weird, existential, and very contained. However, by April 2018, Darabont lost the rights and it ended up going to New Line Cinema, who would hire James Vanderbilt from Scream 5 fame to write the script, and Andre Averdal to direct, who was recently hot off of making The Autopsy of Jane Doe. However, after 4 years, the rights lapsed again, Lionsgate picked it up, and Francis Lawrence, director of The Hunger Games and Constantine, was brought in to direct. JT Mollner was also brought in to write a new script. Mollner had previously written Strange Darling, and is set to adapt another King adaptation next year, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. In July of 2024, Cooper Hoffman, who had previously starred in Licorice Pizza and Saturday Night, took on the role as an ode to his father, Philip Seymour Hoffman, saying, "When your trauma is on display for the world, there's no actually hiding it. I might as well talk about it, or I might as well put it into something. Because if I keep hiding it and running from it, that's not fair to anyone else who has gone through that. Hopefully someone watches it and goes, he sees me, he understands me. And that's, in my opinion, the only reason to do any sort of art." Ray is kind of a fascinating character. Underneath Ray's easygoing manner is a passionate but natural leader who's deeply empathetic. His closeness to his mother makes his participation in The Long Walk a tough choice. Ray and Peter emerge as natural allies and over time develop a true friendship. Peter McVrise is an aspirational figure with a deep well of empathy and grit. He's the spiritual core of the group. Even as he grapples with the ghosts of his past that brought him to this moment, the brotherly bond he forms with Ray is a catalyst that challenges Ray's value system as the gruesomeness of the walk intensifies around them. I swear, this movie is a pocket universe in the Hunger Games because there are rules in this that fit that perfectly. Firstly, once again, we have a tribute from each state are framed as a source of pride for their hometown. And yeah, only one could be left standing, although one of them does have a cool idea to maybe have two winners if they're granted their wish. When you win The Long Walk, not only are you given a large truck of money that gets backed up to your driveway, but you're granted a single wish. One guy wishes for 10 naked women, Ray wishes for an assault rifle so that he can kill the general for killing his father in front of him, Pete wishes that there could be two winners so that the friendship he experienced with the walk could prevail the way he did with his fellow musketeers.
All for what? One for all.
But in the end, as expected, the other 48 drop like flies over the course of 5 days and approximately 500 miles. The contestants are disposed of in various ways. Most of them fall collapsing from exhaustion, some try to run and fail, some turn on the soldiers, one even chooses to go out on his own terms. But in the end, it's just our two final contestants, Ray and Pete, who finally make it to the main city, where they are cheered on by people everywhere as if it's like the final episode of American Idol in 2002. They love this stuff. If you've ever seen The Running Man, it's very reflective. The hype is real. In the end, the bromance is real. And along the journey of friendship, the men make attempts to let the other one live, feeling that the other has more to live for. Both Ray and Pete are great in these scenes, and it's nice to see male friendship on the screen again. However, in a misdirect from who you thought was the main character, it's actually Ray who dies, letting Pete go on. Having seen his best friend shot in the street, Pete is now asked what his single wish will be. And this is going to be the part of the movie where audiences are going to be very divided about what they think happens next. Pete asks the general for a rifle from the soldier, just like Cooper would have wished for. Long gone is the sentimentality of having two winners in the name of friendship. Instead, he decides, in pure unbridled rage, to honor his friend, and get revenge for his friend's father, knowing that's what he would have wanted. Stupidly, the general grants his wish and gives him the gun, letting his hubris to get the better of him, never believing Pete would damn himself just to spite him. However, he was wrong. He shoots the general in the street, killing him instantly. What happens from this point is up to your interpretation. Pete drops the rifle and walks away down the long, lonely street, not a soul walking with him. It's dark and poetic, but is this what really happened? What happened to the fireworks, the swarm of people that were cheering on their champion, the soldiers who just watched their general get gunned down the street? Did they all just vanish? The cinematography is pretty brilliant here because the camera is behind Pete, so we really don't know what happened. We just see him walking off. Could all these things be behind him? Perhaps. Or maybe something different entirely is going on. I find it hard to believe that they're all just idly watching on the reverse end of this camera shot. Did they honor his one wish and legally let him go? Are they still in shock, not knowing what to do? After all, if it's being broadcast, it seems unlikely that a group of fascist soldiers would let, a black guy just commit a crime of passion and do absolutely nothing about it. But then again, I've seen stranger things. It's kind of amazing what people will let slide when there's a camera being pointed in your direction. However, the more likely outcome is that the ending takes place solely in the mind of Pete. They would have shot him on sight. He would have died only feet away from his friend and the general. And the last fleeting thought he would have had is to continue walking the long walk, doomed to walk it forever in the afterlife. Even if he did survive, his life is hell regardless. What does he have left? No. Much like the Twilight Zone, this ending reflects the beginning, keeping our character in a place they were never able to escape, even in death. Regardless, what is clear is that the long walk probably continued, and that one walker who had a wife back at home probably realistically never saw a single dollar from the four musketeers who made the vow to do so. Probably. To me, this film ended like the series Breaking Bad. It's a bit open-ended. Where he goes is never told, but I like to think it's someplace better. One of the big talking pieces throughout the film is how the candidates were given the illusion of choice when participating in the walk. They couldn't name a single person back at home who didn't sign up. With society falling on such hard financial times, literally everyone in that age bracket volunteered. And when you know that, it makes you wonder, were they even picked at random? Or were they chosen by the general specifically? Could this have been the moment they decided to end the walk completely? Nah, they'll probably be back in a year acting like nothing happened, maybe hire Jimmy Kimmel. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, what about the book? How does it end there? Well, the story is a short one, so let's see how the book differs. Published in 1985 by Stephen King as one of his short stories within the Bachman books, along with titles such as Rage, Roadwork, and The Running Man.
I'm not trying to get myself killed, so kiss my ass twice.
No, not that one.
Here is Sub-Zero! Now, Plane Zero!
There you go. But funny enough, research has revealed that this is actually the first story he ever wrote, Stephen King, back in 1979, and would be shuffled around for 6 years before being put into the spotlight. In the book version, there are several differences. Instead of 50 walkers, there's 100. The required walking speed is 4 miles per hour and not 3. We find out that Pete got his face scars from his ex-girlfriend. In the book, Ray and Pete often question their sexuality and masculinity after spending lots of time together. For which a Hollywood movie in 2025, I'm shocked that wasn't the entire movie. Not to saying that would be bad, but knowing how Hollywood likes to make movies about whatever topic they're talking about and nothing else, respect. Also in the movie, Ray sees his mother on the sidelines, played expertly by Judy Greer, but in the book, it's actually his girlfriend back at home, Jan. In the book version though, it's not really clear if the girlfriend is actually there or not. Seeing how he's been lucid dreaming for the past day or so, it's entirely possible that's made up in his head. Also in the novel, the general is fully aware of Stebbins being his son, but keeps him there in an attempt to motivate the other walkers, and to keep it going for as long as possible. They note on this briefly when Stebbins talks about he feels like a mechanical rabbit on a racetrack. And as noted earlier, the biggest difference, the winner. With Baker dead, the only remaining walkers are Ray, Stebbins, and Pete. As Ray tells him a fairy tale, Pete falls asleep and walks towards the crowd. Ray breaks his promise and saves him. However, Pete chooses to sit down and die peacefully. A distraught Ray is beckoned by a dark figure further ahead and decides to give up because Stebbins cannot be beaten. When he tries to tell Stebbins about to give up, Stebbins clutches him in horror and falls over dead. This leaves Ray as the uncomprehending winner, He ignores the Major when asked what his wish is, and keeps following the dark figure, whom he believes to be another walker, declaring that there is still so far to walk, and hoping to catch up. He even, believe it or not, finds the strength to run. Credits for the book. So yeah, in many ways, it's very similar to the book in overall themes and plot points. But much like the film, the book doesn't give a lot of closure to the reader. Pete shoots the guard, and in all likeliness was probably punished for doing so, whether it was that night or later down the road. I honestly don't hate this change. The themes are still intact, Pete winning is just as satisfying as if Ray did, and hey, it was pretty awesome seeing the General get what he deserves. James Smith called the novel a metaphor for the Vietnam War. The televised draft, the horror of seeing new friends die, the seeming lack of reason for occurring in the first place. Stephen King finished The Long Walk in the late 1960s while still a college student. The timing of that is important. Vietnam was dominating headlines, the draft was a constant threat for young men, and the sense of futility in a war of attrition was hanging over everything. Teenage boys forced into a brutal contest they didn't truly choose, marching endlessly with no real victory, only survival until you drop. A government using young men as expendable bodies for public spectacle and control. That reflects the feeling a lot of people had about the war at that time. Drafted kids being chewed up in an unwinnable situation while the public watched from home. I mean, it asks the question, even if you win and get home, what did you even win? And do you even care anymore? Did part of you also die along the way? Even outside of Vietnam, King said he wanted to explore other themes such as death as entertainment, the idea of crowds cheering on suffering, foreshadowing reality TV and media spectacle. He wanted it to be about the fragility of life and youth. He was around the same age as his characters, and he was wrestling with his own mortality. And finally, he wanted to address authority and control. The Major embodies a faceless, unquestionable power, not unlike the draft board at the time or government bureaucracy. In King's own words, he doesn't always consciously insert political allegories in his stories, but he acknowledges that The Long Walk came directly out of the Vietnam draft era, when he and his friends, as he said, were looking down the barrel of being sent away to die. But then again, he also revealed that he wrote it to impress a girl, and that he would write her new chapters every week. He submitted his short story, but it was rejected for being too dark and sat on the shelf for over 10 years, along with his other Bachman works. Which is fair, I mean his Bachman books are pretty bleak. Outside of The Long Walk and The Running Man, you also have Rage, a book that Stephen King himself has pulled off the shelves since the late 1990s, since the protagonists share too many similarities to the shooters in the Columbine tragedy. A frustrated student who shoots his algebra teacher and then takes the class hostage. So I can see why they pulled it, but yeah, definitely King at his angstiest, angriest self as a frustrated young teen. But in the end, he said, "You write from your times, so certainly that was in my mind, but I never thought about it consciously. I was writing a kind of a brutal thing. It was hopeless, and it's just what you write when you're 19 years old, man. You're full of beans and you're full of cynicism, and that's the way it was." So yeah, of all the Stephen King adaptations that came out this year, and there's actually quite a few. There's The Monkey, there's The Long Walk, there's The Life of Chuck, there's The Running Man, which is coming out this year. There's also It, Welcome to Derry. There's even a TV show called The Institute. However, having seen The Monkey and The Life of Chuck is damn good, I think this might be my favorite Stephen King of the year. Probably my favorite since Dr. Sleep. So yes, Vietnam is a huge shadow over it, but it's also bigger than that. It's about any system that takes young people, strips away their individuality, and feeds them into the machinery of death while society rationalizes it as order, pride, tradition, or most of all, spectacle. But what did you take away from The Long Walk? Be sure to comment down below your theories and your take on the ending. I would love to get your thoughts. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you next time. And I would walk 500 miles, and I would walk 500 more, just to be the man who walks 500 miles before I'm at your door. Good night!